Let's wrangle with the late debate co-host Liz Storer in the studio here with me, and columnist and broadcaster and author Justin Smith joining us as ever from Melbourne. Now, what about these Teals, Justin? They reckon that Parliament's all a bit too rough and rugged, and the coalition are full of misogynists, and they want it to be a gentler, kinder place for the Teals, so they can call people racists instead.
Well, I mean, anyone who has spent a bit of time there, which I know the two of you have, will know that it has been an absolute rabble for years. I don't think, I mean, look, they can speak for themselves, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with us checking in once in a while and one side of politics, or both sides of politics rather, getting called out for bad behaviour. Because I've got to say, if anyone ever sits there and watches Question Time, there's a lot of abuse. I don't think it's the kind of shining example that we want for a workplace in Australia. So I think checking in with it isn't such a bad thing, to be frank.
It's a pretty robust theatre. That's the whole point of it. That's the whole point of parliamentary privilege. I think we should always talk about improving the standard of debate, Liz,
sure.
But the hypocrisy and cynicism of the Teals. I mean, they were calling Dutton a racist last week, and Labor as aggressive and abusive as any party can be, and they try and lump this on the coalition.
Yet misogyny seems to be the new hot topic. Yeah. Just earlier this week, we were laughing about the fact that the UK has now got its own category of extremism about misogyny. And our National Security Agency, according to the front page of the Canberra Times today, is talking about our national security agencies looking into misogyny, particularly amongst schoolboys.
Really?
So schoolboys, high school and primary school. And I found it interesting because I was like, can we please define what misogyny is? And in that article in the Canberra Times, part of their description of the misogyny that these national security agencies in Australia are going to be looked into was, and I quote, traditional male societal norms, just natural masculinity, basically.
We are losing
the fact that these Teals can't come up with any specific examples and are just using this out-and-out label of misogyny, it's just weak. And I've always said of politics,
yeah, it's like people who bang on about wokeness and lefties. Yeah.
It is. Well,
particularly of women in politics, if you can't hack the heat, get the hell out of Kuwait. Politics, parliament, state or federal, is not made up of people who are going there to hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Well, that's pretty much
It is a very robust environment. If you're just going to start calling men misogynists
we've
because
had
they're
problems.
happy to take
We've
you
had
on.
concerns before in Parliament about bullying. We've had concerns in Parliament before about behaviour, and I'm not talking about any particular side of politics. Once in a while, I'm not saying that they're right, but once in a while they've got to check in with it, and we've got to do a lot better, because it's not. I love a full-on debate. The two of you know that, but come on, if it's being targeted at people in a bullying type fashion and it's not productive, then what the hell are we doing it for?
Then you could just call every Q&A session, Justin, a bullying Olympics, because it is very robust.
I didn't say that.
And they've always swapped insults. I mean, we all remember Paul Keating, the days of "I'm going to do you slowly." And all the one-liners that are now infamous in Australian history. Everyone thought it was funny back in the day. It's only now that we've got the Teals in that nobody's allowed to be mean. It's just pathetic.
Let's just refresh our memories of some of the wisdom coming from Teals. Here's Zali Steggall.
Overwhelmingly, the conduct is by male MPs. And as others have said, some who have been in this place too long, who I think have lost touch with what is acceptable behaviour outside this place, and think that because you describe this place as a bubble, somehow it condones a different standard of behaviour. It doesn't.
You see, my point, Justin, is that is so hypocritical and cynical, because she says it's okay for her to get up daily and call Peter Dutton a racist or a misogynist, and she says it's all about male MPs when it's okay for Labor's mean girls to reduce Linda Reynolds to tears, even when they're pushing something that's untrue, yet somehow it's all a male coalition problem.
Yeah, well, look, again, I mean, I'm not backing her up, and she can say whatever she likes. That's for her to speak to. But I think it is just worth us checking in with it once in a while. It's not at the first time that we've heard about these problems before. And I'm not pointing the finger at any particular person that is doing it. I'm not saying that it's all male coalition MPs that have been firing these shots, but we've seen this time and time again, and they've got to do better. If you don't think they can do better, I'm surprised at you.
We can't take all allegations seriously. We simply can't. It's nonsense to do that, and especially coming from the Teals, it just doesn't have much weight behind it.
And you're
like
not.
I say, you're defending it. Justin, but there's not a single example that you can point to. Indeed, there's not a single example they can point to. There would be some merit to these allegations of rampant misogyny in federal parliament if they could say, so-and-so called me this. I have this in writing in an abusive email. You've all seen it in question time.
No, I think you...
Meanwhile, we're actually just scratching our heads going, hang on a minute.
I think you misunderestimate. I think you underestimate the extent of misogyny in federal parliament. There have been examples cited. Julia Gillard pointed out Tony Abbott wearing a blue tie and checking his watch. Remember?
Misogyny. I don't know how I missed it. Thank you for providing an example.
There's the evidence. There's the evidence that's been provided. Now, let's go to some matters in the environment and the resources industry. I talked earlier in the week about Tanya Plibersek blocking on Indigenous cultural heritage grounds this tailings dam for a proposed gold mine in New South Wales. Interestingly there, Justin, she says that there are cultural matters there, evidence given to her that she's not at liberty to reveal because of the cultural heritage. This, for me, who was involved in the reporting and the unearthing of the fabrication of secret women's business in Hindmarsh Island way back in the day, this just smacks of all the wrong processes. You know, if you're going to make these decisions, and it looks on the face of it to be a very bad decision because the local Indigenous Land Council had no problem with the mine. If you're going to make these decisions, you've got to provide more information to the public about what the grounds are.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I despise secrets, and I think governments keeping secrets like this, no matter what persuasion they are, it is dead wrong. You know, the thing that I hate about this, it's kind of like we make decisions, but we don't really trust you with giving you all the information so that you can weigh it up. Yes, I think they should release every piece of information that they've got on why they made the decision. You won't get a debate out of me on that.
Now, the interesting thing about this is while Tanya Plibersek and the Albanese Labor government have knocked off this tailings dam, they've now approved today on environmental grounds the country's biggest renewables project. This is the Sun Cable 12,000 hectare solar project in the Northern Territory. And then it's going to have hundreds of kilometres of transmissions up to the coastline, then under the sea and off to Singapore, Liz. How are they going to do all that without encountering some Indigenous cultural heritage problems or environmental problems either under the sea or on the land?
One could easily assume by virtue of being in the Northern Territory, there would be more cultural heritage sensitive issues in this ginormous wind farm that's about to go up, as opposed to the gold mine, which was just 1,100 hectares. This, we're talking about tens of thousand hectares. It just seems to be really curious, doesn't it, that these culturally significant areas are found when it's a mining project, but if it's a ginormous solar wind turbine project, well, gets the green light from the Albanese government, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think...
And let's keep in mind, these things only last for a couple of decades at best. They're going to have to rip it all down, replace it all. It's just a dreadful waste, use of land, clearing it all, putting up these ginormous
it'll never happen,
turbines.
By the way,
we know that they're not renewable.
I should add, it'll never happen. The final decision on investment is 2 years away. Over 2 years away. My prediction is it'll never happen. And thanks for using the technically correct term, ginormous. That's what it is, ginormous. Liz Storer, thanks for joining us. We'll see you back at 10 o'clock.
About that big.
We're out of time. Justin, thanks so much for joining us.